The stars blurred past as Silver's ship cut through hyperspace, his thoughts heavier than the silence in the cockpit. Clanker beeped softly beside him, trying to comfort him, but the Jedi Warden's face was carved with guilt. He could still see the young knight's body on the deck, the frozen look of surprise, a moment that refused to leave his mind. He didn't know where else to go. Not to the Council. Not to the Order. Only one place remained where truth and trust still meant something. Bryson's village. The twin suns of his old Padawan's world rose warm and golden when Silver's ship descended into the fields. The town had grown, more homes, more life, more laughter, and for a brief moment, the peace almost made Silver hesitate to land. But he needed help. As the ramp opened, Bryson was already waiting, cloak around his shoulders, white saber clipped to his side. He looked stronger now, steady, balanced, a man who had made peace with his past. Silver almost envied that. Master Voss, Bryson said softly, eyes narrowing as he saw the look in Silver's face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Silver nodded once, silent, then finally whispered, I did something I can't undo. Bryson motioned him inside. The small farmhouse smelled of soil and metal and firewood. Clanker rolled in behind, chirping with faint nostalgia. Silver sat at the table, hands trembling. A Jedi. I killed him. I didn't mean to, it was instinct. He thought I'd fallen. Bryson was silent for a long moment, then spoke quietly. And now Ethan found the body. Silver's eyes widened. You know. The Force carries whispers, Bryson said, looking out the window toward the horizon. I felt the disturbance. And now you've come here, to bury it. I'm not asking for lies, Silver said, voice cracking. Only time. A way to make it right. Bryson nodded slowly. Then we'll give you time. He turned, unclipping his saber, its blade igniting in a soft, pure white glow. Silver watched it with quiet awe. I changed it, Bryson said. From red to this. I made peace with what I was. Maybe you still can too. That night, under the quiet hum of starlight, Bryson crafted the story the galaxy would believe. Silver had been here, helping rebuild the town during the time of the killing. Farmers and traders would speak of it, Clanker would corroborate the data. The truth would fade, hidden under compassion and loyalty. As dawn broke, Silver stood beside his old Padawan once more. You saved me, he said softly. Bryson shook his head. No, Master. Just repaid the man who once saved me. The suns rose higher, but in the back of Bryson's mind, a shadow lingered. The Force trembled again, faint but real, as if the galaxy itself knew this lie would not sleep forever. Days passed after the lie took root. The air in Bryson's village was warm and alive, carrying the scent of rain on soil and the faint hum of industry. The townsfolk didn't ask questions, they had learned to trust their leader, the quiet man with the white saber and patient eyes. Silver lingered at the edge of town, restless. He helped repair fences, lifted beams, and tuned machinery with Clanker chirping faithfully beside him. But even as he worked, he couldn't shake the weight pressing against his chest, the memory of the Jedi's death, the guilt buried beneath layers of duty and silence. Bryson watched him from afar for several days, reading the man's unease. He remembered being that lost once, scarred by violence, trapped in memories he couldn't escape. And he remembered the one man who had reached out a hand and shown him another way. So, one evening, as the sun sank low and painted the fields in gold, Bryson approached. You don't have to keep moving, Master, he said quietly. You've done enough running. Silver turned, tired eyes softening. I don't belong here, Bryson. These people need peace, not a broken shadow of what I used to be. Bryson shook his head. You're wrong. This village was built by broken people, survivors, wanderers, outcasts. You'll fit in fine. He led Silver down the main path, past the newly built homes and gardens, to a small stone house near the northern edge of the fields. It stood beside a grove of wind-blown trees, its windows glowing faintly from the inside. "This one's yours," Bryson said. "It's been empty since the last storm season. Needs repairs, but I think you're good at fixing broken things." Silver looked at the home, silence heavy between them. "Bryson, after everything I've done." "You saved me," Bryson interrupted. "You taught me how to stand again. Now I'm returning the favor." The older Jedi looked down, the faintest trace of emotion flickering behind his eyes. He rested a hand on Bryson's shoulder, firm and grateful. "You've grown stronger than I ever imagined." Bryson smiled faintly. "That's because you showed me what strength really was." Clanker whistled happily, rolling toward the house as if declaring it already occupied. For the first time in years, Silver let himself smile, a quiet, almost uncertain thing. That night, lights flickered in Silver's new home. The village slept in peace, unaware that the man rebuilding beside them carried a secret heavy enough to shatter it all. And though Bryson tried to believe this was the beginning of healing, the Force whispered otherwise, that the past had not yet released them. Shadows still waited beyond the horizon. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant was quiet, but Ethan couldn't rest. Reports of a fallen Jedi found near an ancient Sith vessel had shaken the order. To most, it was a tragedy, a warning that darkness still lingered in forgotten corners of the galaxy. To Ethan, it felt like a message. He stood before the Council's holographic map of the Outer Rim, eyes locked on the red-marked coordinates that glowed in the dark chamber. The craft had been dated at over 2 centuries old. Its hull was scored with blaster fire and ritual etchings, and the force around it felt wrong, not simply dark, but hungry. "There's something alive out there," Ethan murmured to himself. "Something that kills to survive." His Padawans watched from behind, whispering, curious but afraid. Ethan turned to them, calm but stern. "This isn't training," he said. "What we're hunting isn't a Sith Lord of the old ways, it's something that's learned to hide. Something that walks among light." He returned to the hangar and boarded his starfighter, the engines igniting with a rising hum. As the city planet faded behind him, he reached out through the Force, and felt it. A pulse. A wound. Somewhere in the far distance, a single presence flickered, drenched in guilt and sorrow. It wasn't power that called to him. It was pain. Ethan followed it across the stars, descending through the dust-choked skies of the frontier. His scanners showed faint life signs near a settlement, a village thriving where few ever could. He landed quietly on the outskirts and stepped out, cloak shifting in the warm wind. The Force trembled around him, and he whispered to himself. "It's here. I can feel it." The Padawans trailed close behind as Ethan's gaze fell upon the distant lights of Bryson's rebuilt village. He didn't know what he was walking into, only that the darkness that had killed a Jedi was near, closer than he dared to imagine. Ethan stepped through the village gates, his cloak trailing over the dust-worn stones. The settlement was quiet, too quiet for a place said to be growing strong under the protection of a Jedi. Farmers paused their work, children ran to hide behind doorframes, and a strange unease rippled through the Force. "Master Ethan," a guard stammered, bowing quickly. "We didn't expect." "I'm not here for ceremony," Ethan said, his voice steady but cold. "A Jedi was murdered near the Outer Rim. A Sith weapon was used, ancient, unstable. I'm looking for any travelers, wanderers, or anyone who's been near that craft." The guard exchanged glances with another man, then nodded toward the far end of the street, toward a small stone home near the fields. Bryson's home. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Thank you." Inside, Bryson sensed him coming before the knock. His heart tightened. Across the table, Silver sat still, his hood drawn low. The two exchanged a silent look, the kind born of fear and brotherhood mixed in one. When Ethan entered, the air turned thick. "Bryson," he greeted, his tone formal. "I didn't think the Jedi Order reached this far anymore." "We make do," Brycen replied carefully. This place has peace. No reason to disturb it. Ethan's gaze swept the room, then froze for the briefest moment on Silver. The force stirred. Guilt, buried deep, flashed like a scarlet spark before being swallowed again. And your guest? Ethan asked softly. An old traveler, Brycen said before Silver could speak. Been through hell, looking for rest. Ethan's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe him. He needed to. But the echo of darkness he'd felt from orbit, it was here, breathing, hiding behind familiar eyes. He finally turned toward the door. If there's anything you know, Brycen, anything at all, tell me before the darkness spreads. Brycen only nodded, his fingers brushing the hilt of his white saber beneath the table. When Ethan left, the door closed with a slow creak. Silver exhaled sharply, hands trembling. He knows, he whispered. Brycen looked at him, not with anger, but with quiet resolve. Then we make sure he never finds out the truth. The suns had barely set when Ethan returned. The village square had gone quiet again, save for the hum of night insects and the flicker of lanterns in the breeze. Brycen stood outside his home, watching the horizon, but he could feel the storm coming long before Ethan's boots hit the dirt road. Ethan didn't speak at first. His face was calm, but the force churned violently around him. Finally, he said, I scanned the surrounding fields. The energy signature from that Sith weapon, it's here, Brycen. It matches the readings from the body. Brycen froze, every word landing like a blow. You think I did this? Ethan's eyes softened, but only slightly. You've carried darkness before, Brycen. A red saber, a shadowed past. You can't expect the council, or me, to ignore that. Brycen's hand clenched around his belt, where his white saber hung, the very symbol of his redemption. That's not who I am anymore. Before Ethan could reply, the door swung open behind him. Silver stepped into the dim light, his hood falling back to reveal eyes lined with guilt and exhaustion. It wasn't Brycen, he said quietly. It was me. Ethan turned sharply. Silver, what are you saying? I killed the Jedi, Silver confessed, voice trembling but steady. It was an accident. I didn't know he was there, I panicked. My saber, it slipped. For a moment, silence ruled them. Then Ethan stepped closer, anger and disbelief warring on his face. You what? You killed one of us, one of your own kind, and you hid it. Silver didn't flinch. I came here to make it right. Brycen was protecting me. Ethan's breath hitched as his fury gave way to heartbreak. Do you realize what you've done? The Order will never forgive this. They'll come for both of you. He turned, the force pulsing with pain as he walked away into the night, his cloak whipping behind him. Brycen called out, Ethan, wait. But Ethan didn't. He paused only long enough to say, without looking back. You've both chosen your path. I just hope you survive it. The night wind carried his words away, leaving Brycen and Silver standing in the quiet, the weight of truth crushing the silence between them. The morning came heavy with silence. Brycen could feel it, a chill through the force, a shadow that had finally found his village. Farmers were still tending the fields when the first transport descended from the sky. White robes, brown cloaks, the unmistakable insignia of the Jedi Order. Silver watched from the workshop door, guilt hollowing his chest. They're here, he said quietly. Brycen didn't answer. He only adjusted the belt that held his white saber and stepped forward, his boots sinking into the dust. The lead Jedi, a tall man with a scar across his chin, approached, flanked by temple guards. His expression carried no warmth. Brycen Voss, he declared, voice sharp as Durasteel. By order of the Jedi Council, you are to be taken into custody for the murder of Knight Velner Sai. You will come with us peacefully. Brycen's jaw tensed. I didn't kill him. Then surrender, the Jedi replied coldly. And prove it before the council. Bryson's eyes flicked to Silver, who stood helplessly in the distance. The order had come for him because of Silver's mistake, and part of him wanted to give in, to keep his friend safe. But another part, the part that had survived years of pain and exile, refused to kneel again. When two guards moved to shackle him, Bryson's instincts erupted. His white saber ignited with a blinding hiss, cutting the morning light in half. He parried one strike, twisted, and sent a guard sprawling backward. The scarred Jedi drew his own blade, green, and their sabers clashed in a crackling storm of light and fury. I won't be taken for what I didn't do. Bryson roared, driving the man back. You're proving them right, the Jedi shouted, blocking another strike. Bryson's anger surged, every blow faster, heavier, until his saber hovered inches from the man's throat. For one breath, he wanted to finish it. To end the injustice, the lies, the years of running. But then he stopped. The white glow of his saber reflected in the man's terrified eyes. Bryson saw not an enemy, but another soul caught in the cycle of fear and control. He stepped back, deactivated his weapon, and dropped to one knee, trembling. I am not the darkness you think I am. The Jedi stared at him, stunned. Silver ran forward, shouting, he's telling the truth. It was me, it was my fault. But the Order didn't care. They raised their weapons and signaled for reinforcements. Bryson stood tall again, his voice low and defiant. If you take me, he said, you'd better be ready to bleed. The battle ended not in victory, but in silence. Bryson's saber lay half buried in the dirt, its light fading to nothing. Smoke drifted over the field, and Silver knelt beside him, shouting his name as stun cuffs snapped around Bryson's wrists. He didn't fight anymore. The fire in him had burned too bright, and now only embers remained. The Jedi transport lifted off, leaving behind the frightened villagers and Silver's desperate voice echoing into the wind. When Bryson awoke, he was on Coruscant, in the cold chamber of the Jedi High Council. 12 masters surrounded him in a ring of light. Their faces were carved from stone, their judgment, final before it even began. Bryson Voss, said Master Taurian, her voice clear and sharp. You stand accused of the murder of Jedi Knight Velner Sai, the assault of council officers, and resistance to lawful detainment. Do you deny these charges? Bryson looked up slowly, chains heavy on his arms. I didn't kill him. The council murmured among themselves. Ethan stood at the edge of the chamber, head bowed. His heart screamed to speak, but the council's silence held him prisoner too. Master Taurian continued, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Your saber crystal bears the energy signature found on the victim's wounds. You ignited your weapon against Jedi sent to retrieve you. The Order cannot ignore this. Bryson's fists clenched. You're blind. You see only what fits your fear. A hush fell. Even the Force seemed to still. After a long pause, the head of the council delivered the verdict. Bryson Voss, you are found guilty of crimes against the Jedi Order. You will serve 70 years in the temple prison beneath Coruscant. The Force will watch you, and judge you. The guards moved in. Ethan looked up, eyes wet with guilt. Bryson met his gaze one last time and said quietly, tell Silver. I don't blame him. He was led away in silence. Hours later, deep in the Durasteel tunnels below the temple, Bryson sat alone in his cell. The air hummed faintly with the Force inhibitors embedded in the walls. His hands ached, his spirit heavier than ever, yet within him, a spark still burned. The galaxy had turned its back on him. But he wasn't done yet. The Jedi prison was silent, not empty, but hollow. The hum of suppressor fields echoed like whispers in Bryson's skull, dulling the Force until even his thoughts felt heavy. Days bled into weeks. He trained his body when the guards weren't watching, meditated when he could, but mostly he just waited, for a sign, a reason, anything. That reason came one night. The lights dimmed to the red glow of emergency mode, and the shadows seemed to shift on their own. From the far corner of the corridor, a low voice spoke, smooth, familiar, dangerous. "You've aged, Brycen." Brycen froze. His hands curled into fists as a figure stepped from the dark, wrapped in a black cloak that shimmered with faint crimson energy. It was Varney's Core, a Sith agent who had once served under Malachor, a zealot from Brycen's old life, before silver, before redemption. His yellow eyes gleamed through the gloom. "I thought you were dead," Brycen said quietly. Varney smirked. "The galaxy thought the same of you. But I see now, the fire never left you. Imprisoned by the Jedi. Clever. They'd never suspect one of their own would still walk with the shadow." Brycen's stomach turned. "You're wrong. That part of me is gone." Varney stepped closer, unbothered by the restraint fields that buzzed faintly around them. "Gone. No, no, Brycen. You can't erase what you are. The way you move, the way you breathe, it's still there. You feel the darkness, don't you? It's what keeps you alive in here." Brycen didn't answer. But deep inside, he knew there was truth in the Sith's words. The darkness hadn't vanished, it had been caged, waiting. "Relax," Varney said, lowering his voice. "I've made this place survivable. The guards look the other way when I need them to. Stick close, and you'll last long enough to find your chance to escape." "Escape?" Brycen whispered. Varney's grin widened. "You'll see. The Force is stirring again, old friend. Something's coming. When it does, we'll be ready." The Sith faded back into the corridor's shadows, leaving Brycen alone again. The hum of the suppressor fields returned, steady, cold, and rhythmic. Brycen sat back against the wall, staring into the dark where Varney's had stood. He wasn't sure what frightened him more, the idea that a Sith was helping him, or that a part of him still wanted to accept.